topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, America. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where we bring you the finest experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. About 3 years ago on today's show, we started welcoming people from Atlanta, and then it grew to Georgia. And over the years now, because this show has become so important to the Ask the Expert show, that we run the show on a national basis. And I got to tell you, I do about 35 shows a month. And I got to share this with you. This is my favorite show to do. I have watched Dr. Eldred Taylor evolve from, we were just talking about it, we started talking about weight loss and then hormone replacement. And this is a show that has evolved that you don't want to miss it. I'm actually getting emails from people who say they just found the show and they normally watch for about 5 or 10 minutes and they can't stop listening to the show. I want to welcome Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Thank you so much, Steve. You know, I on my podcast that I had, what am I saying to say? I always try and give you credit for getting me started on this road. Is that I joined you and no, I'm saying, you know, I was talking about how I was kind of in a rut. You kind of got me out of the rut because I had stopped speaking and sharing information, and then you asked me to be on this show. And, you know, I talked with my wife and she was like, yeah, you ought to go back and start doing that. That'll be an easier way for you to do it. There's other doctors on the internet. Yeah, why don't you give it a try? So that was 7 years. That was 3 years ago. And, you know, from this show, you and your producer and the person who creates this invited me to do my own podcast. I was a little hesitant at first, but as you see, I got a backdrop. I got all of this stuff.
I know.
But it started with,
you know what?
Dr.
Taylor, every single, you know, I get, and I hope people will subscribe to it, the Ageless Blueprint. I cannot believe every single one is different. Every one of them is so educational. But most important, Doctor, it touches people and it opens people's eyes. And there's not too many people who can say that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm just trying to share my experience. You know, my eyes got open after I got out of medical school and practiced for like 7 years. My eyes got open that I haven't learned all I needed to learn to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be helping people. I'm supposed to be helping people get healthier. And that wasn't what was happening the first 7 years of my career. And what really brought it home is that what I was doing in my office, I brought it home, was trying to help my wife, and it wasn't working. So I saw it 24/7. So that was the beginning of this, is that this does not work as well as I was told that it was going to work. And so that opened my eyes. So as my eyes get open, I have to share it. It's like, if I don't, it's just like, it makes me sick if I don't start talking about this, you know. So that's kind of where it started, and And from that, 20, 25 years ago, yeah, I've evolved and I've had my ups and downs, but I feel like this is one of my ups. And I want to try and maintain that up as long as I can and try and help people get to a higher level of living and more knowledge, because knowledge really is power. It really is.
It's amazing. You're like to me, you're like a sponge. It's like, you can't get enough of this. And you even
Yeah.
traveled to Egypt. And look what
Yeah.
you learned from that trip, Dr. Taylor.
Yeah. It really brought home the importance of spirituality and to understand that we're all connected. And if you go to a place like you'll start to feel that connection. You're like, it's like you've been there. You see those, and you are in awe at what human beings can do. And then it tells you that if human beings were able to do that 6, 7, 8,000 years ago, what should we be able to do that we're not doing? What are we not building? They built these temples. What are we not building? So I'm building this ASUS Blueprint platform. You're building the Ask the Experts. We are supposed to be building and creating and all of this. And then that gave me the notion that, hey, I can build something too. I can build something great. And that's what you have to look at your surroundings and say, what is that telling me? And what that did is inspired me that I can do more than what I think I can do. Just like we can't figure out how they can make those pyramids, but they did it. And if you
Right.
are aligned with your purpose, you'll be able to do amazing things. And that's what that trip to Egypt taught me. And I came back, started this ASUS Blueprint, and we just came back in December. So this is what, 8 months later.
Yes.
And I'm surprised at what we've built, and I want to keep building it.
Hey, I was thinking about this gentleman you met over there, and
Yeah,
God
yeah,
is amazing. Look
yeah,
what God put in front of you. I mean,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
had to go all the way to Egypt to find
yeah,
this guy. And
yeah,
look how he's touched your life. I mean, and I give all
yeah,
credit to the Lord. The Lord
yeah,
knows what we
yeah,
need.
yeah. And when we need it, and you just have to be
Yes,
open and stop fighting against it. You have to be open and stop fighting against it. I said on my podcast is that I know Rebel wants me to give her titles, and I know you do too, of what I'm going to talk about. But I
right.
have to wait. I have to wait on divine timing. And that's what I have
I
learned. That's
understand
another
that.
thing I learned. And Tuesday is the day that I get the inspiration. So Monday, a patient came to me who was coming to get cancer treatment for IV vitamin C for cancer, and she was telling me how she told her oncologist and she told her pharmacist what she was going to do, and they told her, please don't do it. And she said, why? And he said, well, because it's going to interfere with our treatment. And so, but see,
Oh my gosh.
whenever I talk to a patient, I tell them, hey, look, this is what I think you need, but I want you to do your own research. I want you to be convinced that this is what you should do. Because if a patient doesn't believe something is going to work, it's probably not going to work. It's called the nocebo effect. You have the
Yes.
placebo effect that I think is going to work, and you have the nocebo effect says I think is not going to work. And whatever you think, you're right. If you think it's not going to work, it's not going to work. If you think it's going to work, more than likely it'll work. So anyway, so they were armed with this information. And so even though those docs and the pharmacist told her don't do it, she showed up in my office and she told me that. And so what my podcast that I did right before this, it was talking about the research that substantiates vitamin C. And what I did is, if you don't know about ChatGPT, there's ChatGPT 3.0 that does deep research. So I asked it, I said, can you do deep research on vitamin C and cancer? And I only want the most respected articles. I don't want you to give me any flim flam articles. I want you to go through the ones that have been peer reviewed, that's in respected journals. And it was over 100 articles. It's over 30 human studies. And they all substantiate the benefits of vitamin C, whether it's used alone or with chemotherapy. And if you use it with chemotherapy, it actually enhances the effectiveness of the chemotherapy. So it's exactly opposite of what the doctor and the pharmacist told her. And you say, well, how can that happen? It's because doctors they're bound by what we call the standard of care. The standard of care simply says, what are most reasonable physicians doing in your area? So it doesn't say, what does the new research tell you to do? It says, no, you need to do what most doctors are doing in your area. And that's why the pharmaceutical industry is so uh, focused on getting in doctors' offices and getting them to do something. Because if I can get enough reasonable physicians to do a drug, even though it's poison, which chemotherapy is, if I can get enough doctors to do it, it becomes the standard of care, whether it works, whether it's scientifically viable. But if I can get enough doctors to do it, that automatically becomes the standard of care. To me, that's ridiculous, is that you're not basing it on science. You're just following the leader. It's really follow the leader. And whoever can establish themselves as a leader and as the thought leader, and I can get enough people to think like that, that's the standard of care. So doctors are afraid to get out of the standard of care. I'm not afraid. And in order to do what you are supposed to do in this life, you have to get over fear. Fear is what stagnates people. It keeps them in a rut. It's all about fear. And doctors are fearful, and that's why they don't do what they're really supposed to do. And I believe that with all of my heart, because I've talked to enough physicians. I've stood on stages and talked to physicians, and they're scared. They're all scared about if the medical board is going to come after them. And those are, and they're legitimate fears. They're legitimate fears, but those are man-made fears. They are man-made, and they're keeping you from the truth. And that's why I'm going to the public, because they don't know about the standard of care. They're not bound by the standard of care. So if I give them the knowledge, and if enough of them can go and convince enough doctors and they're armed with the knowledge, that can become the standard of care. All you have to do is convince enough doctors to do it. And I'm counting on the patients to do it, because that's why the pharmaceutical industry says, ask your doctor about this drug. I want you to ask your doctor about vitamin C. Ask your doctor about saliva testing. Ask your doctor about how bioidentical hormones really work. Ask your doctor about, why don't you incorporate my soul and my spirit into your treatment? Because that's what holistic medicine is all about, is making sure, and that's why I call myself the spiritual MD, is that you have to combine all of that in order to actually be whole. And that's really holistic medicine. Because you asked me, how do I describe my practice now? I guess I really am a holistic doctor, because I understand how to make a whole person. And how did I do that? Is because that's my goal every morning when I get up and meditate and all that, is how can I become whole? Because I can't teach you how to do something that I haven't done. And so that's right. So you see, this program is evolving because I'm evolving. And so I have to talk about things that are happening to me as I evolve. So I'm going to be quiet and see if you have another question.
Well, no, listen, I'm mesmerized when I do your show. So you talk about vitamin C and cancer. Yeah. And someone just wrote, does that mean they have to get a higher dosage of vitamin C than normal?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm talking about IV vitamin C, because your body can only absorb so much vitamin C at one time. If you take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C orally, which is 1 gram, then you only will absorb 25 to 30% of that. And if you say, well, okay, I'm going to take a bigger dose. Well, when you take bigger doses, you end up getting diarrhea. If you take more than 5 grams, you'll end up getting diarrhea. It's because your body can't absorb all of that. Now, IV, we start out in cancer patients giving them 50 grams. So 50 times what you would be taking orally, because that 1,000 milligrams is 1 gram. I'm talking about giving 50 grams. That's where we start. If the cancer is
And how
more
often?
aggressive,
How often? Dr.
we
J?
do it once a week. Okay, we do it once a week, and I'm gonna do another episode about this test called Signatera that looks at fragments of DNA from the cancer. And so you can look and see, are those fragments increasing? That means your treatment's not working. Or is it decreasing? That means your treatment is working. And you can do that like every 3 to 6 weeks to see if your treatment is working. But we give IV vitamin C every week, and we do it. Sometimes we'll do it for 10 weeks. We see what the treatment, how it's going. But it's every week. We give 50, sometimes we give 75, and we can go up to 100 grams at one sitting. And so with that, I'll just say it quickly. Vitamin C, what it does is it enhances, it makes the healthy cells healthier so that it can encapsulate that cancer and keep it from spreading. The other thing it does, it actually generates hydrogen peroxide. And what hydrogen peroxide does, it creates oxygen. I said hydrogen peroxide is H2O2 and water is H2O. So it creates hydrogen peroxide. It creates an extra oxygen and water. And cancer cells don't like oxygen. So if you can hyper or super oxygenate yourself, that's why cancer patients will go to hyperbaric oxygen treatments, because they hyper oxygenate themselves, and cancers don't like it, and the cancer cells actually die off from this extra oxygen. And so so that's what vitamin C does. And so that's why it enhances the chemotherapy, because now you have another chemotherapy agent, which really isn't a chemical, called vitamin C, which is actually acting synergistically, or actually increasing the efficacy of the chemotherapy. It's not interfering with it. And that's why I'm saying that doctor told her the exact opposite of the information that she needed. And so that's why I did that podcast, and that's why I have that document that they can download and take to the doctor that's saying, hey, you're telling me one thing, but I've got 30 studies from peer-reviewed journals that are saying the exact opposite of what you're saying. And I want you to help open the doctor's eyes, because a patient actually opened my eyes about bioidentical hormones. And most of the things that I do in my office now is because a patient asked me or brought me information, and I researched it, and I said, the patient's absolutely right, and I need to offer it to other patients. So that's my goal, is to get you to get
Your
the
wife
patient.
kind of helped too, though.
Oh, my wife
Your
helps with
wife
all this
helped
stuff.
in the early days too.
Oh yeah, because she was my test patient. We talk about
Yeah.
God and the Lord. I used to joke. I said, my God had me marry a woman who could teach me what I needed to know, because she had hormone problems, she had stress problems, she had all, and so she was my wife guinea pig, and so I could look at what I needed to do
And
for
she's a
her, and
doctor also.
she's a doctor also. So we have evolved together. She's originally trained in psychiatry and family practice. I'm did OBGYN. So yeah, we have definitely evolved together. And I'll tell you, the fact that we have evolved professionally has also helped us evolve relationally. I don't know when I'm going to do this podcast, but I was going to do that this week. But I want to talk about how I'm seeing all these couples. This is a little bit off subject, but I'm going to do this podcast. And since I'm talking about evolving with our relationship, is that did you know that divorces after 30 years of marriage have almost doubled? Well, they have doubled since 1990. And I know in my life, I've seen couples who've been married for these long durations of time. All of a sudden they get divorced. And we're like, how can you get divorced after 30,
Right.
40, 20, 30 years of marriage? Well, it's because they didn't evolve together. Is that, they went through marriage, they went through children, and now they have evolved into this new stage of life. And sometimes you lose yourself in those 20 or 30 years. And now the kids are gone, your parents are gone, and now it's just you two. And if you haven't evolved together, you get this separation. And people, they think that if they go and get a new relationship, that's going to help them. But usually it doesn't. And it's because that they haven't evolved together. They've kind of lived a separate life. And a lot of times the only thing that brought them together were the children. And now when the children leave, they don't have anything holding them together anymore. And sometimes it's due to hormonal changes, it's due to stress. So that's why I'm getting back to my 2 books, Are Your Hormones Making You Sick and Stress? Usually those are the 2 things that bring you apart. And if you don't understand how to handle your hormones and handle stress, it can lead to divorce. And I'm telling you, divorce. I haven't experienced it. I don't want to experience it, but my patients tell me that divorces are stressful. And it's probably one of the biggest stresses. And you don't need that stress when you're 50 or 60 years old.
Hey,
I don't think so.
Taylor, do you think as we get older, and my mother used to tell me this all the time, we don't have the kind of patience we had when we were younger. Do you see that in your practice?
Yeah, I just don't think we tolerate as much. When you get older, I know in my life, I have cut out some things that I probably should have cut out a long time ago. Okay. I mean, and I'm talking about relationships and, things that I thought were essential in my life. I found out that they're really not essential. And I think when you get, 50 years old, 60 years old, we kid about the get off my lawn kind of thing, the angry old man, get off my lawn. But I think that's the extreme. But I know in my life, I had to cut off some relationships in order for me to evolve into what I needed to be. And if you're not, I think if you and your spouse aren't on that road together, it can cause difficulty. Because I'll be honest with you, before I kind of made this shift, I could see my wife and I like separating out. We weren't as close as we needed to be. But then when we got on this road together, we came back together. And so I even talk about in the podcast that I'm preparing is that I was worried that I was going to be a victim of that. Is that because I was in a rut, she was kind of in a rut. We really weren't expanding and evolving, and that causes frustration. And my wife could see the frustration in me. I could see the frustration in her, and it caused some conflicts. But when you're determined and when you are committed, and it's a real death do you part, you figure out a way to reconnect, and that's what we've done. And I that's something I need to share with people is that sometimes divorce is not the answer. Now, if you're in an abusive relationship, no doubt. But if you've seen that you separated, if you can find some kind of connection, some kind of common goal, some kind of common interest, like you had when you had your kids, the common interest was to educate the kids, make them independent. So you had that common goal. A lot of times when you become empty nesters, you don't have that goal anymore. And my wife and I, we found another goal, something else to excite us, because we all need a spark in life. We all need something to excite us, to make us want to get up in the morning and get together with our spouse or whatever. And so I found that spark in this, and that spark has kind of overflowed into our relationship and made our relationship, even after 39 years, I'm going to tell you, my wife and our relationship is better than it's ever been. So again, that's the exact opposite of what people think.
I think teaching is your spark too, Dr. Taylor.
Oh, it is. Let me tell you, the chairman of my department in OBGYN, who he wrote the textbook on GYN surgery. So he was my chairman. And in my 4th year, when I was about to leave the residency, he said, "Dr. Taylor, you're a teacher." And when they said that,
wow.
Yeah. And he
early?
said that early. And I said, "No, I don't want to. Wow. I don't want to." I was thinking he wanted me to be a professor in medical school. And
right.
I'm like, I don't want to do that. I know that's not what I want to do. but he was right. People see in you what
Wow.
you can become that you can't see. And I remember that. He told me that, and I rejected it, but he was absolutely right. I am a teacher and I am a communicator. Communicators make difficult things seem simple.
Yes.
Educators make simple things seem difficult. Okay, so
So
yeah,
you
he told
have
me
a
that.
podcast.
Mhm.
Tell people when your podcast is.
Well, it's 9 o'clock every Wednesday. It's a 50-minute podcast, and if you want to know more about vitamin C and cancer, go to AgelessBlueprintPodcast.com. All of my podcasts are there. You can see it live on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, and on that Ageless Blueprint Podcast.com. And all of my past podcasts and the one that I just did right before we did this show, it's right there. But yeah, yep, I'm a teacher. I have to just come to grips with that.
And we run this show every week. That's how important this show is. We're on 90 different platforms. So there's many ways to watch and listen to the show. Dr. Taylor, you know what? Someone just wrote that you and I seem to click, and we've been doing this for a while now. And I feel like I know you so well. We've never met in person,
No,
but we have
Yeah.
I mean, the Lord is important to us, and
Yeah.
I just believe that you touch somebody every week. And
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I have never felt so blessed. I've been doing this for 15 years. I have never felt so blessed to have a
Yeah.
show like yours. And we don't know what we're going to be talking about next month, but you know what? The God will leave us. Someone just wrote, "Why don't you do a show on detox?" And I'll
Okay.
bet you it'll probably come up when we're
Yeah.
talking about cancer and vitamin C.
Yeah. So let me just say this one thing. My dad was a Baptist minister. So one of the songs that sing is that if I can touch somebody along the way, then my living shall not be in vain. So all I need to do is touch one person on every
Exactly.
podcast, and my living will not be in vain. So that's my goal.
You're amazing. I love you.
All right. Thank you.
We'll see you next month. Thank you,
All right.
Dr.
Okay.
Eldred
Thank you.
Taylor. That we're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.